Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Hello my friends and welcome to another recommendations video. Today I'm bringing you a video that is sponsored by my channel members. Channel membership is just another way that you can support me here. I'm sure you've seen them on other channels. I have some different levels that get you exclusive live chats with me every month, as well as early access to all videos that I make. Channel members, along with my patrons, are what help me be able to do this full time. So I really appreciate them. So thank you to my channel members for literally being there around, I think this is the three years, or are we going on 4 years that I've had that now? I think 3 years I've had that. So anyway, today, as you can tell by the title, I'm bringing you some marriage in trouble recommendations. So these are, like it says, couples that are already married at the start of the story. And I believe I did do well in picking all those ones. Yes, I did. Because there is also a version of this, and so it was difficult to pick these ones out because, as always, people putting books on Goodreads don't always know what the trope that they're even putting books under means, because a lot of them involve reluctant arranged marriages that are then in trouble. And not that some of these aren't arranged marriages, but in those books, the focus is on the marriage is in trouble as it begins. For the most part, all of the ones I'm going to share, there's at least something happy about the marriage in the beginning, and then there is something that comes between the couple, but they're still able to make it work. This also doesn't include couples that are already divorced and then come back to each other. That's something else that was on the list, right? Before I Let Go is a great example of that. But that couple, they are apart and even try dating other people before they fix what is going on, right? So for this one specifically, I'm talking about marriages in trouble. I think for this one I've made another video, but it had been quite a long time. It had been over 2 years. And I have 2 books that are overlapping from there. Otherwise, all the rest are, I haven't talked about them in that previous video. So I'm going to start with the 2 that kind of inspired me to do this video, because that's usually how it works, is that between, viewers suggesting one that they want to see, it also sometimes comes to me what are the trends of recent books that have come out, right? That's how I decide what recs need to happen. So the 2 that kind of inspired me to do this both came out this year, and they are both favorites of mine. One of them is even a 6-star read. So the first one, which I'm sure is probably the book that makes you want to read more of them, because there is always that book. The current book going around that is a marriage in trouble is King of Greed. Okay, so this one is just driving everybody crazy right now. All right, I'm actually holding up the regular Bloom version of this one, which does have a lovely picture of the 2 of them here, because my Barnes & Noble edition does not come up well on the film, so we've just decided. So anyway, this is book 3 in the Kings of Sin series, and this one is about Dominic and Alessandra, and they've been married for 10 years, I believe it is. And this book starts with Dom missing their flight where they're supposed to have a weekend away from business for their anniversary, and he misses it. And Alessandra is like, that's it, I'm done. It hurts too much to watch this man I love so deeply continue to push our marriage to the side and not make it a priority the way that we deserve to have it be. And so she leaves him with divorce papers and leaves. And Dom, who loves his wife with his whole heart, has built this empire, because he's a billionaire now. He built this empire with her, for her. And it's what, he wants to present this to her, because he came from basically nothing. But the thing is, she married him for him. He didn't have this back then. And at the cost of making billions, she lost her best friend and the love of her life. And she just isn't willing to pay that anymore and live in the shell of what they once had. So she puts her foot down. I don't want to spoil anything within this one. I know marriage in trouble, but I thought that Anna used a very subtle touch with this one while still making me feel very deeply for them. One of the challenges with this trope that we all see through these recommendations I'm giving is that there is a balance that has to be struck. Like, what is causing the trouble in the marriage without us disliking either one of them, right? You know, we don't really want to see cheating. We don't really want to see that because it's hard to forgive a person if they did that. So in this one, it's really like his neglect of her that he didn't even mean to do, but he did. Also, something I'm going to say, I realized I should have said this when I started. A big theme of marriage in trouble, and you're going to see this, is usually infertility or loss of a child. And so a big theme in marriage in trouble is this couple loses a child in some form, and it leads to a lot of this. So just a trigger warning just for that. I, of course, will tell you which books have that. Even if it is maybe a spoiler to the plot, I will tell you, because for me, loss of a child, miscarriage, stillbirth, that is my number one thing that if I don't know about it ahead of time, I get very upset. Anyway, moving on. The other one that was new this year and is a 6-star read for me is Return to Monte Carlo from Kate C. Wells. This one actually has kind of the opposite of loss of a child. This one is also kind of a secret baby. So how this works. This was a big age gap. And we have our heroine, I believe they have interesting names in here. There's Diane and, I have to look it up, and Marco. And she was actually a, like, shop girl. And when she was only 19, he, like, fell for her and they had this fling. And Marco, he's the head of his family in Monte Carlo. He is the boss. He has, you know, very strict, like, things he's supposed to follow and what to do. He is a very powerful man, but his life has, for the most part, been dictated by his family. And Diane is that one thing he took for himself. He wanted this young woman. They have this great, like, a lot of it is based on physical with these two. But this isn't a super long book. It's almost more novella length. And so it worked for me with how we, you know, kind of shared what they're going through, because this was a lust-based thing. And our heroine came from not a lot. And so when this rich man wanted to make her his trophy wife, she was like, all right, and he's taking care of all her family, and all this is great. Now, what the downside is and where we begin this book at, they are 1 year into marriage. It's their anniversary. We have another case of the man being late for the anniversary. And she lives in his home with a lot of his family because, again, very wealthy, own this big place. She's not getting to be the mistress of this house. She is seen as like a gold digger and an interloper to this. Yeah. And on this anniversary, she gets very, like, at the end of her rope, and she says some things to his family members. She slaps one of them, like, just as he's getting home. Like, they have pushed her to this point, but she's at the snapping point. And Marco, he has been oblivious to a lot of this. Like, again, these two are really mostly connected physically. They are. But she's had enough. She's like, this isn't worth it. It isn't worth it. And when he kind of, like, chastises her and tells her that she gets everything she wants and how tough really is your life. You get to shop all day and eat what you want and, you know, all of these things. She's just like, okay, then if that's what, if you're telling me I am a trophy, your family thinks I'm a gold digger, I'd rather go back where I'm loved because I'm not feeling it there. So she leaves in the beginning of this one. So we have her leaving. Then it skips ahead a few months. And she tries calling him to let him know she's pregnant. She discovered she was pregnant when she got back to her family. And I think it's been 3 or 5 months. I can't remember. I think it might have been 5 because she's starting to show. And she tries to call and his assistant answers and, like, won't let her talk to him, which that's always a red flag, okay? I don't even care if they're a nice secretary. If your wife or husband doesn't get through to you because of them, goodbye, assistant. That's all I got to say about that. So she doesn't try again, but he's able to figure out where she is and he goes after her and he doesn't know she's pregnant at this. He doesn't know that, but he shows up because he wants his wife back. And it really kind of shook him up a little bit. And when he sees she's pregnant, he's like, you have no choice. You are coming back with me. Also, I didn't say this takes place in the 80s, so there is some like 80s vibes going on. You know, we don't have some of the same tools at a billionaire's disposal as they have in 2020, so that was kind of cool to see as well. But anyway, so she is basically blackmailed into coming home because he has bought her family's home, he's paid off all their debt, and he's willing to play dirty to get her to come back. So there's aspects of this that reminded me of Run, Posey, Run. I mean, he does blackmail her to come home. There isn't him like forcing her, tying her up. There isn't, you know, any of that. But she comes back and the gloves are off. She's like, I'm coming back, but I'm not going to behave the way you're used to. Like, I'm going to be here, but that's all you get is my physical presence. And Marco has to decide, like, you know, this person he took for himself that differed from what his family was going to make him do. He's always felt guilty that he did that. And he kind of has to come to the realization that he deserves to have a relationship the way he wants to too. There's also a good kink in here. Part of the reason why their lust-based self-relationship works so much is they have some of the same kinks in here. And, you know, she's realizing that might be all that we have in common. And they really have to work on that. So that was a big talk about this one, but this is a 6-star book for me. And it's a quickie. I love Kate C. Wells. I love how she like handles dynamics like that. And that story, for all I explained it, is actually like very sweet. And I think you could like it a lot. Okay. Now we have one of the ones I said was in the old video, and it shows up in pretty much every marriage in trouble or second chance that I talk about, and that's because it is a favorite historical romance of mine, and I will continue to bring this book up. I will continue to preach the good message of the Mackenzies as long as I have a booktube channel. So I have, of course, for you Lady Isabella's Scandalous Marriage, which is book 2 in the Mackenzies. This one comes after Ian Mackenzie, which you absolutely should read. But this one is about Isabella and Mac is an artist, and him and Isabella have been separated for a few years. They were married for a couple of years. Back then, Mac was an alcoholic and a bit like manic in ways. Like some of the ways he's described, it sounds like he had, you know, some form of like real bad like mood swings, and I don't know if it's supposed to all be attributed to his alcoholism, but there's also like through this family in this series, there's supposed to be this little bit of streak of craziness anyway. You know, not just Ian, who, you know, is actually called crazy by these people, but there's this bit of manic. So Isabella and Mac had been this runaway marriage. She had kind of been disowned from her family for marrying him, and she was okay with the high life for a while. He would be, you know, partying with people, and she would be there too and doing art, and it was fantastic. But his alcoholism was getting out of control, and the snap of it for her was when she lost their child and Mac wasn't there. He was off binging, and she was done at that time. So they've been living separated, and she wants to petition for a divorce. She wants to make it official so she can move on and he can move on. And Mac is like, no, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to let you go. And she's like, I mean, I'm going to make it happen. You can't force me to stay. And he begs her to give him another chance. And also, I should say, like, Mac has been sober for quite a few years now. He doesn't touch a drop of this stuff. But he also has been uninspired. Like, she was his muse for a lot of those years they were together. And so, anyway, this book, it's beautiful. I love the second chance between these two. And, you know, Mac proving to her to not only be the loving man she remembered, but even better. Because even when they fell in love, he was an alcoholic. And now he's sober and he's her husband and he wants her back. So this book is very powerful. As I have mentioned, the trigger, they lose a child due to a late term miscarriage in this one. So be prepared for that. It doesn't gratuitously go into it, of course, because it's past, but just know that. And again, we're going to come across a few more of those as we go, but we're going to go through the list. Okay, then there was The Unwanted Wife by Natasha Anders. So this was one that had been suggested to me for quite a few years, and it was one of those that I picked off of my recommendations form and gave a good try to. I will say this is not a favorite of mine, but this is a recommendation video, you know, for this trope. I don't have to love every single one in here, and this is a pretty beloved book. I am in, well, I wouldn't say the minority because it is kind of split with this one. This one is an angsty one. And this one is also kind of like a, well, not kind of, this one was a arranged marriage. And on the behalf of the husband, this was actually a forced marriage. The heroine just knew that it was arranged for her, and she really liked the guy she was getting paired with, so she went for it. And they are supposed to make a baby. What she doesn't know is that to get the, like, when they forced the man to marry her, they said, like, once she gives you a baby, you'll be able to divorce her. And she didn't know this fully. And at the beginning of this book, she's becoming aware of that. And he has treated her horribly because of a reason. I don't want to spoil that. Like, it's been a while since I read this, and I know it's a spoiler, like, why he's being so awful to her, because he's pretty cruel to her. He really only has something to do with her when they're trying to make said baby. He's just pretty cruel to her. And when she finds out why he's mad at her, she also, a little bit like Return to Monte Carlo, has a snap moment where she's like, I don't have to be here. Like, I'm not going to let you treat me like this. And she wants to get out of town. And again, as in with Return to Monte Carlo, she happens to discover she's pregnant just as she wants to leave him. They've been trying all this time. And when she would have been happy, you know, I mean, and she still she's happy she's going to have a baby, but now she really can't leave because she is pregnant with what they really want. But she's also still done with him, and he realizes his mistake very quickly. So again, this one is one many people really love. There is supposedly a very epic grovel in here. I don't think the grovel was enough for me for the things he said and does to her, but a lot of people, once they know like why he's being so mean to her, and the grovel is enough. Again, I can only give you my opinion on it. The people who recommended this to me and other friends who've read it like it much more. So that's why I put it in here, even though it's not a personal like top of this at all. There is one for you to snag if you want to try a very angsty one. All right, then we have another one that is angsty, but it is so beautiful and has wonderful representation in it. So Ever After Always by Chloe Leese. This one does also have infertility as an issue. And we have our couple in this one where like he has anxiety and like a lot of stresses in his life, and she is plus size. She's comfortable about it, but she thinks it could be affecting some of like her fertility, and every time they like fail to get pregnant, it chips a little bit away at their relationship. This was actually my first Chloe Leese when I read this. I read an arc of this one before it came out. I've actually only read this one and the one after it. I want to read more. I know. But anywho, and I just loved how in this one, they are still like pretty close to each other. They're not like super on the precipice of like a divorce the way some of these other ones are, but things are definitely not their best or where either one of them wants it to be. And so, yeah, this one does involve some like counseling, both like separately, and I loved seeing a hero who like he's so gone for her, but his anxiety and his stresses are causing him to seem more aloof with her and not be able to be the man for her that he wants. And I thought that that was a very important aspect to look at, and I think it was done beautifully by Chloe Leese in here. All right, now we have another historical, and this one is a little bit wacky, a little bit over the top, but I really love this author, and this was the first book I read by her, and I enjoyed it so much. So this is Her Husband's Harlot by Grace Calloway. This is the first book in Mayhem and Mayfair, and it starts off a whole like bunch of books from Grace Calloway, which I just love. And this one, you guessed it, is about a married couple. We have Lady Helena and we have Nicholas Morgan. And so these two, they've been married for not too long. And I can't remember if I think they had consummated their marriage, but like it didn't go well, and then they didn't try again, or else they haven't even tried. I can't remember. This one's been a while. But he'd started out as this like bastard shipping merchant, but he actually discovers he's a legitimate Marquess of Hartford. And so it's been a pretty like rough thing, and he is able to like marry Helena, who is like pretty above his station, but now, you know, she can really give him a lot of inroads more into society, you know, with his reputation on the rocks, because he was thought to like be a bastard, and now we know that he was legitimate. And I can't remember if like his marriage then, like him being legitimate, if it delegitimized other people. I can't remember how that worked out. But anyway, so he sees himself as this big like brute who isn't good enough for Helena. He feels like he kind of was able to steal her away. And so now that he has her, he feels really guilty about that. And he also feels guilty for some of his like sexual desires that he has. So it's like he's obtained this beautiful woman and now he's like afraid to have her. And so why this one might be a little tough for people is he is at a brothel in the beginning of this. And our heroine goes and disguises herself as someone who's there, and ends up being like they have a tryst while he thinks she's someone else. So it's one of those where he like believes that he's cheating on her, but like he's not. So that could be a little uncomfy for some people, but this is the start of a series I really like. And once we see, there's never a good reason for like wanting to cheat, in my opinion. I fully believe that. But being the time that this is set in, being the situations where it has been, I feel like he makes up for it quite well in this one. And the audiobooks of these are all on AnyPlay, and that's how I listen to all of this series. All right. Then we have one that the marriage is a pretty small part of this book overall, but I just love that this one is a marriage in trouble, because when I tell you some of the trouble that happens at the beginning, it might be the most dramatic of all of the ones we're talking about here. So we, of course, have Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin. We have Captain Bennett Sharp. She is a female pirate, and she's actually married to another pirate named Priest. And he has betrayed her in some way, and she has left him, and he is also a pirate, and he's been chasing after her. And in the beginning of this book, he catches her in a port and is trying to make her listen to him so he can explain what went on, because she thinks he cheated on her because he finds a letter from a lover. Now, this letter is older, and he isn't cheating on her, but it is clear that he was in love with someone else before her. And that just makes her feel heartbroken. And so he catches up with her. He's trying to make her listen to him. He wants to win her over, whether sexually or any way, he's going to win her back. And so she captures him instead and ties him down in the brig and goes in to like kind of question him. And he is allergic to oranges. And so she covers herself in orange juice and then lets him touch her. And he becomes covered in a rash and boils because she's covered herself in oranges. And I just love that. So that is like their interactions at the beginning of this. And that's kind of like what we get introduced to. And then while she has Priest captured in the brig, they get captured by Ashley. Oh, I just forgot his name. Anyway, an admiral who is a pirate hunter in Her Majesty's army, or Navy, Her Majesty's army, in the Navy. And so she ends up sacrificing herself because she's the biggest prize if they let her ship go. And as she goes on to this ship to be taken captive by Ashley, she tells her people, like, let Priest out, he'll captain the ship now, you know, so she still loves and like trusts her husband, even though she's really pissed at him. And now she is taken captive and has to find a way to keep herself alive, and not be taken back to England and hanged for piracy. So that was like the worst explanation of Sea of Ruin I've ever done. This is one of my favorite all-time books ever. I adore this book. This is the Eternal Embers edition of this. This was actually their first book that they did, and I like pre-ordered this bitch so fast. I'm so excited. I also have another version of Sea of Ruin coming soon. I wonder when those ship. There's another version of Sea of Ruin coming, and I want it really bad. But anyway, this is one of my favorite books ever, and it does have a marriage in trouble. So if you need another reason to read Sea of Ruin, there it is. All right, then we have another one that this shows up on pretty much every video for a marriage in trouble, and it's still a book that's really close to my heart. When I read this book, I cried so much. And this is another case of a hero not paying enough attention, even though he is so in love with his wife. He just has some kind of mental blocks in the way. And this is Love Her or Lose Her by Tessa Bailey. And this is a couple that they've been together for a while. He's ex-military. He's very stoic. They have a wonderful sexual relationship, but their connection outside of the bedroom is just not great. And the heroine wants to start her own business. She wants to be free to, you know, meet someone who shares her interests more and is, you know, just more compatible with her, because she feels like she doesn't have that with her husband anymore. And he is like, no, I'm not letting you go. What can I do? I'll do anything. And she's like, we're going to do couples therapy. And he's like, well, I don't want to do that. And she's like, well, that's my price. We're going to do it. And so she is like, okay, we can do it. And, or he's like, okay, we can do it. And they decide to follow this love guru's plans. And so on her side, she ends up trying to pick the most ridiculous marriage counselor that she can to get him to fold, because she just wants to be done and move on. So, but he agrees to follow every rule that this guy sets out because he wants to win his wife back. So I love this one. I think it's well done. All right, then I want to throw in Midnight Mass by Sierra Simone. This is a novella that comes after Priest. So you do need to read Priest first before you read this, because it is about Poppy and Tyler. Yes, I think I did that right. Yeah. And this is about a loss of a pregnancy again. And it is about their kind of like beginning of their marriage and trying to find, you know, how their relationship works kind of outside of the taboo, because these two got together in such a, you know, forbidden and taboo way. If you've read Priest, you know. And so it's like, what does that relationship look like once you're now married and are in an HEA? You know, what is it when it's not forbidden anymore? I don't know. I found this to be very moving. I really liked this, and I do highly recommend, if you've read Priest and you haven't read Midnight Mass, you know, it's an epilogue story. It still has some pain in it, but it is still their HEA. You know, they're still happy together. Then there is Shattered Secrets by Lillian Harris. This was a recent release, and it was actually my first Lillian Harris. So you can read this one without having read her other series. It does connect with the Messina crime family. I'm currently reading that series, but this one is about the mafia's lawyer and his wife, and so you'd be able to read this one without reading those, like I did, and it was fine. And this one is actually an amnesia second chance romance, but it is a marriage in trouble as well, because when her husband, who, yes, is a lawyer for the mafia, and she does not know that, she is in the real world and doesn't know, they are just working on creating a baby. They're at that point in their relationship, they're ready to have a baby, and he disappears. And once he's disappeared and she's doing everything she can to find him, she starts learning about what he was involved in and how he got involved in it. And she learns about this whole world that she had no idea that her husband was a part of. When she ends up finding him again, it's been a while. There's a time jump in this one, and he has no idea who she is. And what I like about this one, and this like is a bit of a spoiler, but I think it stands itself apart of other amnesia romances, is the hero never like fully remembers everything. He remembers parts of like who he was young, but he doesn't perfectly remember his time with her. So they have to fall in love all over again. And I love that. I really love that. Because that's a bolder choice to make. Yeah, because usually at the very last second they'll remember everything, and I'm pretty damn sure I'm right about this. I am. He doesn't ever remember everything about her. Like, yeah. Okay, and then the last one I want to talk about is another novella, and this is one that I have loved for quite a while. It's one I forget to recommend sometimes because I don't always talk about novellas, you know. But this one is The Devil's Submission by Nicola Davidson, and this is actually about a submissive hero, and he keeps this hidden. Lord Grayson, you know, it would be shameful if people knew that he liked to be whipped by a mistress and stuff like that. And so he is part owner of a sex club, but he keeps the heroine definitely away from that, and she wants to be there. Like, she's tired of being a proper obedient wife and not feeling this connection with her husband. So she tracks him down, and at the club she walks in on him being whipped by a mistress, by his, not like his mistress, but not like his mistress. Like, he isn't having sex with this woman, he's just being like disciplined by her. And so our heroine then learns to be able to give him what he wants. So that's what this little quickie is about. So there you go. There is 10, 11 marriage and trouble recommendations. Please let me know some of your favorites. Again, check out the other video that I've made on this if you want more. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.